Hi, this is Matt with the Intergalactic Herald. This is podcast number 35. So you're actually getting one. I'm actually a few hours from now heading out of town, but I was able to find some time to record this. So I'll do the editing and get it posted. So I may have mentioned in the last one, may not be able to do one this week, but found the time. So again, moving on, this is podcast number 35. If you're interested in any of the links or videos that I may mention, please go to intergalacticherald.com and look for News Recap 84. That's the past news that I curated of different Star Atlas content creators and things like that. So you can again check that out on intergalacticherald.com. A couple other kind of things. Again, if anybody's interested and want to be a guest on the podcast, please let me know. Again, go to intergalacticherald.com, go to the contact page and just send me a message. What I'm hoping long term is to make this sort of a roundtable discussion of the past week in Star Atlas news. So definitely look into that. Someday I hope to also have some guests, get some of the other content creators and the Star Atlas builders on here, kind of interview some of the community members. Just want to mention two of my Star Atlas projects, though I will be first to admit they are woefully not being worked on due to many personal, family, business things. But I think we'll see. I think my month is almost over, and maybe I finally will get some time on the weekends after way too many things. So anyways, the two projects are the Intergalactic Gear. That's my merch store I hope to start building for Star Atlas gear within the Star Atlas Builder program. So go to intergalacticgear.com. I have a merch survey there. A few people have submitted it, so I greatly appreciate you taking the time. Please fill that out. That gives me some ideas on what kind of merchandise people are looking for, so I can start looking for different suppliers and different ways to get those. The other project is called the Intergalactic Coalition, intergalacticcoalition.com. This is what I'm calling a non-guild guild. So it's a place for Star Atlas gamers, maybe solo people who aren't really interested in joining a guild, but yet still want to hang out and talk to other Star Atlas gamers and different things like that. This will be a paid community. I'll go perfectly upfront about that. Two reasons for that. One is that the software that I'd like to use is not Discord. So it's a actually paid software for community. It's a community platform. What's really great about it is it allows for threaded discussions and email alerts. So you can come post something, and then if other people comment it, you get an email alert that does it. It does have an app, so you can still do it on a mobile device if you want to. But I've used this, been involved in some other entrepreneur communities that use this, and I find it really useful to keep up on things, conversations, unlike the chat format that is Discord. So that's one. And two, the second reason why it's paid is basically to help support me and the time it takes to do my different things. So community members there, in addition to paying for that service, to talk to other Star Atlas gamers, help for creating this podcast and some of my content, things like that. So, okay, moving on to content from the last week. Shout out again to Metaverse Nomads. They've been really having a great series of Star Atlas team members interviewed on their Sunday live stream. This last one was Jose, and I don't know his background per se. I know there's something to do with penguins. I think I heard, he's from Brazil. I hope I got that right. Anyways, again, I know people go by different names, and I don't know how to pronounce his. Anyways, Jose does the lore, and it was really great. One, and again, they've done this now in a couple, getting some of the backgrounds of the other Star Atlas team members, obviously where they're located, how they got into the team. Jose had a great story about just offering to help out and was able to move up within the team. So that, again, I love those kind of stories on how employees, take the effort and show passion and get involved. So anyways, a great interview. But obviously, since he's helping or is writing the lore, or a lot of the lore for the Star Atlas game and others things, it was really great to hear that. Now, I want to be completely upfront, and I think I may have mentioned this one. Lore just isn't for me. I'm not interested in the comic book, graphic novel, whatever we're calling it. I don't read the lore in Neveralone. I haven't read any of the lore buttons in Sage Labs. Occasionally skim the ones that came out on the Medium. So I think what Jose is doing is great. So I don't want to dismiss that. It's just not something that has appealed to me. However, I'm kind of changing my tune a little after I listened to, one, his passion. That came through very well. But also the different things. And I think the reason I wasn't into the lore was I came to Star Atlas looking to play a game. And if you've played any PC games, maybe console, I'm not sure, but again, I'm a PC gamer. There's sometimes a story, you have something about a faction. I'm thinking of some of the RTSs I played, but really you're playing the single player campaign, or it's set in something like, sorry, not Call of Duty. Well, Call of Duty does it too. I mean, it's not too hard. Bad guys, war, terrorists, whatever. Company of Heroes, that's the RTS. It's set in World War II, so it's really easy. You know, you're playing as US or British or Germans or something. So yes, there's a person and they're doing something, but it's really the story moves the single player campaign on why you're doing the next objective. So it's definitely not primary. But what I was really fascinated, and again, why I'm maybe changing my mind a little bit on lore. Oh, and again, I've never played an MMO, which I know they have a lot of lore in a role-playing game, so obviously the lore is important there. But what Jose was saying, which was kind of interesting, is that the goal of the lore is to actually impact the future game. And I guess this is the first time I really realized that not just, hey, I want to do some mining, or I want to have my ships, I want to sell stuff on the marketplace, that excuse me, the factions in Star Atlas will have things. And I think what was really fascinating when he mentioned that maybe in the future, the NPCs, the non-playable characters, will actually interact with them. And maybe I'd never heard this before, whatever, but you know, some of the ships, I forget which, again, I've not read the lore, I don't know, but there's the rock ship guys, they're sentient. Anyways, that you'll actually be able to interact with them. And he mentioned there's a possibility, again, everything is, you know, not today, but again, where they want to go. And again, I'm totally fine with them having goals. If they reach them or not, that's beside the point. They have an idea and a vision where they want to go. But that we maybe as gamers inside of Star Wars will interact with them, and like they can even help us out in battles. And I was like, oh, whoa, okay. I mean, it's not just reading a story. And yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Anyways, so that was really fascinating, that maybe someday we'll interact with the NPCs. The other thing you mentioned that I found really interesting was that even though guilds have been promoted a lot, we really need to think about the game as being factions, or again, factions at the top, then your guild, especially if you align a guild to a faction and then a player. So that kind of organization structure makes sense. I mean, a bunch of guilds get together as part of a faction. But the point was the faction, sorry, I'm still fighting colds, apologize, we'll maybe have objectives and missions and things like that, hence things that are developed by the team, which, again, will much more interact with the lore, in my opinion. So, again, now I'm like, oh, now I can kind of see where, you know, not just 3 different races, so you can have 3 different ships, which is a common RTS game design thing. So, again, I'm starting to think a little differently about this. And I think, again, part of it why I wasn't interested is I just didn't see it as a full story. And again, I know they're developing it, and I know these aren't comparable at all, but we'll just stick with sci-fi. I mean, Star Wars, the first movie, didn't have lore, right? It was a movie. And then there was a second one, and the characters kind of built. And again, think of any movie with a sequel. Again, you know, that isn't Star Wars. I mean, they just build on the characters, and then there's the trilogy. But that was 1977, I think. Yeah, Star Wars came. Anyways, whenever it came out, in the late 70s. But now, today, I mean, you could definitely say there's Star Wars lore. I mean, apparently every character in the original Cantina now has a name, a race, and a backstory. None of that exists in the first movie. So I was kind of thinking, oh, okay, I kind of see it. But again, I'm taking for granted that I have lived the entire Star Wars saga, and so it's just part. Now, 10 years from now, I may look back and say, oh, remember Star Atlas and this? Yeah, okay, it could happen. But again, I just wanted to play a cool game. So that's why the lore wasn't really something there. But again, what I'm now seeing more and more the I know, synergy, but how these can relate together is that the lore will keep engagement once the gameplay becomes routine. I mean, as much as, again, I'm not too satisfied with the engagement in Sage Labs because I want to, and I'll get to it in a second. I figured that out too. But anyways, that the lore will keep us. Again, if there's missions, if there's battles that the NPCs help us with as individuals, or again, just trading with them as opposed to other people. Now I see where, your alliance within your faction has some merit. Anyway, so again, it was really insightful, and maybe again, just hearing somebody passionately talk about it for, I think it was 2 hours or over an hour and a half, really kind of made me much more intrigued by it as opposed to just reading an article or clicking a button. Or I guess the Never Alone is a perfect one, because there's, post this picture on Twitter. Okay, that's the action. And then read this. Again, it has nothing to do with the posting, and I just want the points so I can build up to get the thing. So again, much more driven by the action as opposed to the lore there. So coming to appreciate more. We'll see if I actually get into reading it. The other interesting thing was, this past week, is CEO Michael Wagner was interviewed on a podcast, and I had never heard of the people. Lots of people in Discord said, you got to listen to this. You got to listen to this podcast interview. I guess it wasn't a podcast. It was a YouTube. So I did listen to it, and I do admit it was really good. And I don't know if it was just that it was a good interview, or the people interviewing him did not know a lot about the project, so they asked quite open-ended and general, trying to understand it questions, which naturally led the interview to be much more informative and starting from square one, as opposed to somebody who's familiar with it. So as I was listening to it, I just made a few notes. But again, I think it was a great interview. Again, if you check out my news recap, the link will be there. So anyway, just a couple things that came out. And again, so mainly the things that I noted were, again, interesting insights about Star Atlas, the game, the company, the vision. So the first one, there were some questions about, again, a lot of projects, Web3 projects, crypto projects came out a couple of years ago, were really more about investment type things as opposed to game. And Michael Wagner said, their real vision was to first build a game and not just an investment and a lot of the other Web3 games that came out around the same time were much more about the investment part of it, buy our NFT, it'll go up in price and whatever, as opposed to building a game that just happens to use NFTs and blockchain and things like that. So again, I've heard this before, but it was nice to hear it again, because I think it really reinforces that that Star OS is building a game. The community is probably involved because it's a game, though many people are interested because of investment opportunities and things like that. So he also, as anybody who hangs out in the Discord has probably heard the rumors of that Michael Wagner likes to leak things, but maybe it's just because we've been focused on Sage Labs or whatever. But he talked a little about the next version of the showroom, and again, it's going to have racing, which I've heard before. But what was really interesting was the thought he mentioned again about tournaments, and I'm like, okay, makes sense. A race, again, no different than Formula One or NASCAR. I mean, again, races, people watch, things like that. But again, all of this was reinforced how it's possible is because of the multiplayer feature with the collaboration with Metagravity, which I think is the technology provider. Again, I have to go back to previous ones to really understand, but the key integration by using the Metagravity, whatever it is, platform technology is that, I think they're saying up to 30,000 people at one time. So again, there's no way that you can have spectators watching a game in the game. I mean, there's the whole Twitch streaming and esports, but this is, I think, again, the key in game. So again, it makes much more interesting the showroom than just go in for a while, look at your ship. But again, racing. And again, I think this goes back to one of the first things I remember looking at when I was trying to buy my first ship. They had the types and all of them said racing. I kept thinking, how are these ships going to go into space? I mean, again, it's a game. It doesn't have to do it. But again, you can't just wear a spacesuit and go out on a bike. But yeah, again, games don't have to be perfect. I mean, don't have to be real life. Anyways, but all that kind of made me much more excited for the next showroom, because again, a thing to do, racing, thing to watch, tournaments, and the idea that, again, we could have tens of thousands of people potentially at one time. So again, all really cool. The next thing you mentioned was the wanting, again, there was no announcement, no dates, but about the scholarship feature. And I've a couple of times mentioned about what I'm starting to understand is this idea. And up until this point, I'd kind of thought of it more as, well, the term would be outsourcing. Again, in business, I'm fully on board with that. It's one of my business plans to leverage the economies of people in different parts of the world that maybe can work on things in different hours or work at a different rate. And so again, I have no problems with outsourcing. It's business. But at least as how it's sort of been presented, and a few times I've heard it in the gaming space, was more taking advantage, especially if, again, I don't want to click on the thing, so I'm going to hire somebody to click. And again, to each his own. I'm not trying to judge anybody. But what was interesting, the way Michael Wagner framed it, and I thought this was really cool. One was it's makes it, setting those kind of things up makes it free to play for a new player. So I think the example he gave is, say you have a large ship and you want to do the scholarship feature. Okay, cool. So the person on the other end, the player, the new player, comes into the game going, cool, I can use this big ship. Now, chances are they don't have the money for that thing. So it's a way to bring people in. So they don't have that high barrier to entry, i.e., I have to buy a very expensive ship. And then Michael Wagner mentioned, well, the idea would be we would split the earnings with the owner. And I'm like, oh, well, that sounds a lot better. Again, the owner has the ship, the new player doesn't. Transaction trust, how's the right way to say it? So it's fully trusted because it's blockchain. There's no fear of things getting stolen, but you don't have to actually trust the person. I guess that's trustless. Yeah, anyways. So, and then something occurs and there's an earning and that gets split between both parties. Now that actually seems fair. It doesn't feel exploitive. It feels like cool. And from the new player, they get to come in and do something. Now, maybe that spurs them on to take their earnings and buy a small ship and repeat the process, build up theirs. And I'm like, oh, okay. So again, I think that it was a much better presentation of the idea than some of the things I'd heard before. Now, I'm not saying that the other things won't occur too, but again, a lot of this is how you present it. And to me, that was really interesting. And the next topic was automation tools. And again, this has been very talked about in different places about, well, what is the, going forward. And on this interview, Michael Wagner again said, he continues to say everything is okay if it's open source. And again, that's fine. Reiterating the positions or lack of position, but reiterating, I think is fine. And also the second thing was, again, that it doesn't give an individual advantage. And again, that all makes sense. But what was nuanced that he said was, if this is occurring, it probably means the game isn't fun and they need to rebuild or redesign the game. And that was the light bulb moment. It's like, oh yeah, if it's so grinding, use the what is it? Whatever World of Warcraft is, wherever that term comes from, then that's not an interesting part of the game. And so just change that up. So, or even I think he may have alluded to, well, that means we should just build that into the game so that people can automate it themselves. Again, we're in the early stages. There's, the team hasn't come out on here's what it's allowed and here's what not. They said they're doing some experiments when one of the teams or one of the guilds announced their project. So I think this is still just all healthy because, again, I'm definitely feeling like to say automation is wrong defeats the purpose because it's not how business works. We all try to automate, and it doesn't seem realistic given that blockchain is, you can interact with the blockchain independently. So anyways, but again, it was really, really great. And then the last kind of section that I thought was really interesting was he talked a little bit about the DAO, and the interviewers were also mentioning it. And I don't know if this is the first time I ever heard it, but Michael Wagner mentioned, well, it just may not it may not work. I'm like, whoa, what do you mean it may not work? But again, it was kind of that realization that, again, this whole concept of decentralized autonomous organization sounds great on paper, right? But it doesn't exist in real life. I mean, everything is centralized, whether it's banks, governments, businesses, whatever. So again, that blockchain democratizes everything, crypto democratizes everything. DAOs are a way to structure it where you don't have things. But what was the real takeaway that I thought was great was that there could be voter apathy, i.e. in the DAO, you have to vote. And I was like, yeah, what happens when people don't care? Because gotta believe there's like a quorum, like gotta be over 50. I don't know. There's got to be the whole kind of structure to how this works. So if the people really aren't interested in it, then it doesn't really make sense. So as much as I know there's some people that are very pro, hey, we got to get the DAO, we got to get these proposals and all this other stuff. Are they the majority? Most people maybe just want to play a game or want to play with their investment. So the team start out with the vision of a game, governance, strategy, politics, all that stuff. That's great. That's awesome. I mean, if the whole thing came through. But again, the realization that, the DAO just doesn't exist just because we want it to exist. It has to exist because the people in the DAO want it to exist. So again, back to voter apathy. I mean, if nobody's really doing it, then it won't exist. So again, maybe it never actually happened. So again, it was just more of an insightful thing. And to close on the interview, I have to say, and again, I don't know if it was just the interviewer's style, but it was an incredibly open discussion. Again, I think Michael Widener gave a great interview and a lot of information. And I don't know, just again, when we listen to things, so when people said it was a really good one, I concur. It was really great to listen to because I think, again, makes you feel like, yeah, this is a project I want to be in. So a couple of quick, small news items at the end. One was there was a patch to Sage Labs that came out that is addressing some of the SDU scanning things. I read it, but none of it sunk in because, like I mentioned in the last podcast, I've kind of given up on Sage Labs as far as a day-to-day thing. In fact, I guess it's not even a day-to-day thing. I'm just not even thinking I want to play it because it just provides nothing. Now, I went in for a few hours, did the Never Alone campaigns that related to it, and got it done. And like, oh, okay, I'm done. So, again, I'm busy, so I think that's the factor too. Again, going away this weekend for a personal thing. Had another personal thing, been sick. Anyways, this is the wrong time of the month to go into something that involves clicking and higher level math. So I'm not really sure, but again, it is interesting that the SDUs kind of continue to be needing refinement. For something at the beginning seemed like a throwaway concept to help small gamers has turned into this massive thing or discussion and community thing. So we'll see where it goes. The last of the small ones, the Golden Ticket, campaign, for whatever lack of word, was finally announced that it's coming. There's 8 drawings. I thought there was only going to be 4. Maybe they expanded it. But interesting, it ties into I assume it's the last 8 weeks of the year, or maybe it gets over right at Christmas, or who knows what. But again, the last 2 months of the year. So that's coming. Finally looked at the chart of what's being given out. So it all looks cool. So I think that'll, again, in general terms, I think it's a great promotional thing to get people involved. Again, you can debate whether or not it's truly 1.3 million because, again, it's NFTs, but yeah, it doesn't matter. It's a great promotion. If people are interested, who doesn't like to do something to try to win something, whether, again, you call it a lottery, a raffle. I think they had different terms in the announcement that it's like a reward structure or something like that. Again, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't care. But anyway, so that's coming, and I think it'll be very exciting to hear. And again, obviously, or hopefully people who win, say they won, unlike government lotteries where you're required to give out your name whether you want to or not. Obviously, it's blockchain, so you don't have to say anything. But again, I think it'll be interesting. And one thought I had is after this, because again, that's a lot of assets. I do wonder if things will be slightly different because this feels like, I don't know what to call it, but it's, everybody has a chance. So there's levels of playing field. It doesn't matter how much money you have. Again, you got to get golden tickets, but right now you can buy them on the marketplace for, I think, like 8 cents. So, I mean, again, we'll go back to the latte. Who doesn't have $5 if they wanted to do it? So, but again, when it's over, we'll have new players showed up. Will people play around with their assets? Again, who knows? But again, if this is the kind of next 8 weeks, and then the showroom module comes out. Again, it doesn't really matter. I guess the Solana Breakpoint's coming up this upcoming week, I think. Yes. And so the team's going to announce a whole bunch of stuff. So would be shocked if they don't announce a bunch of features, but also put some dates around it, because I think this next version of the showroom is the next thing, even though I know there's the next version of Sage Labs. But I think the showroom is it needs to be the next thing, which again, they've talked about it being public access or public beta. I don't remember. But anyways, and against the mobile app. So it'll be really interesting to see if the new year brings a whole bunch of stuff. So anyways, okay. Enough with that. So final little section, just again, update on kind of what I'm doing, my strategy. Like I kind of alluded to before, I'm not playing Sage Labs. Again, it's just not engaging. But one thing that I think, and it had been mentioned, I can't remember if it was at the Brew or maybe it was Michael Wagner's interview. And I'm sure it was, actually now I remember. It was the game designer Chipdo's thing talking about XP and LP, loyalty points, and some other stuff. And I think maybe Michael Wagner said, but anyways, there's a whole concept of progression. And I guess this goes back to the player profile. It kind of dawned on me, putting it all together, that I think that's the missing element. Zealy's kind of cool because you're progressing to gain enough points to get these rewards. Sage Lab, of course, is sort of progression in the sense that you're mining resources, but you don't know what the resources are going to be used for. Showroom has 0 progression. But if you tie all this stuff together with your player profile, i.e. your wallet, and your actions in all these potential 3 different places, the browser game, the UE5 game, and the mobile app, move forward. So your time has a result, not just what your strategy is in Sage Labs or how much money you have to buy a ship or any of that. If combination of everything allows you to progress forward, I think that's the missing element. I really think until we see that, it's really going to be hard individually myself to get very excited about things other than, the one-offs. ZOE, Never Alone campaign here, drawing in the golden tickets. Yeah, anyway, so I'll be actually interested to see if they kind of wrap that up into some sort of cohesive, but also marketing nature to new players, because that does really feel like the thing that we're missing. So, and then the final thing, I put all my ships back in Score, because it's easy and I was gaining Atlas. So I don't really read much of the other parts of the Stardust Discord, but I skim them, I mark them all red. And I thought I remember somebody saying, oh yeah, anybody in Score doesn't make sense. You should be mining. It's so much better. And I was like, first of all, I was like, huh? Because mining to me is Sage Labs, and I didn't feel like I was making something there. But again, I'm not into the arbitrage and the spreadsheets and all this other stuff. So again, I could be completely wrong. Maybe it is better. But the thing that I'm stating is Score is better for me because I don't think people are factoring in time. Because what time I took in Sage Labs, and I said this in our podcast, I could have done so much else with it. Again, I could have went to bed. I could have watched TV. I could have worked on my business. I could have worked on my side business. I could have made more content for Star Atlas. All those things to me are much more valuable than some more hydrogen or carbon or iron ore or something like that, because my time is not worth pennies. So anyways, I don't know if it's true, but I just throwing that out as kind of a thing that I was like, I should look into it. And I'm like, no, I don't have time. So I'm keeping everything in Score with my faction claims and my ships. And so my 4Rs are being built. My Atlas is accumulating, and still just trying to figure out when I'm going to get the Max Hawk, because the prices of the SDUs keep fluctuating so much. So anyways, that's it. So just to wrap up again, if you're interested in chatting with me on this podcast, love to have any podcast guests, please go to intergalacticcarol.com and look for the contact page. If you want to follow links to anything I mentioned here, like the Michael Wagner interview, please sign up while you're on the website to the weekly news recap, and then you'll get all those links sent to you on I guess I'll say it. I send them. Yeah, everything goes out Sunday, 5 p.m. Pacific time, both this podcast and the news thing. And again, if you're interested in getting involved in a couple of my other Star Wars projects, again, trying to develop a merch store at intergalacticgear.com, please go there, fill out the merch survey. Love any feedback you'd give. And if you're not really interested in the guild experience, not that there's anything wrong with guilds, again, I'm trying to get to create a paid community for Star Atlas gamers, particularly people that are just going to be solo gamers, just come in and out, but want to still stay up, have a chance to chat where they don't have to sit around in Discord and try to figure out conversations. Please go to Intergalactic Coalition and fill out the interest survey. My goal is to try to get maybe like a founding group put together that it's at a price point that covers the software, I don't know, say for a year. And then that's the commitment I'll give to the community to set it up and run it for that period of time. But again, I'm still don't have any time to think about that. So anyways, that's it. Thanks for listening again to my Star Atlas Week in Review podcast. Hope you guys all have a great week ahead. Looking forward to the Breakpoint keynote. Hopefully we'll have a way to get that because, again, it's in the Netherlands, so I'm definitely pretty sure I'm not going to be awake when it's live, but hopefully there'll be a repeat. Otherwise, again, just have a great week ahead. This is Matt with the Intergalactic Herald.